Next step is to begin working on the torso of our character. Now, I'm going to hide the sphere for now just because we're not going to use it until our last step where we connect everything to the head. But I tend to start with the torso. There's a school of thought that says start with the head or some other pieces and places, but the torso for me is just really like the hull of most biped objects, so that's where I'd like to go next. I'm going to start using a box modeling method, which means I'm just going to add a simple mesh cube, and I'm going to scale it down so that it is generally the size of our torso. And this one's not going to give us the same kind of segments, and they're a lot easier to add more segments to a torso, so we're not going to do anything with the modifications when we create this thing. But I'm going to start by placing it and scaling it just at kind of the base of my character. Let's get this decently sized and positioned. I'm going to go into, let's see if X-ray looks pretty good there. That way we can see our tracing image. And then I'm going to go into edit mode, and let's see, let's see if I'm going to grab that whole top. Let's move it up to the shoulders, scale it down, and I'm going to scale it so that it does a bit of a taper. If you've noticed, the neck's a little bit more thin than the hips, so this taper that we're creating is working out pretty well to kind of get some of the form. And then it looks like there's going to be like some delts and other kind of shoulder muscles later on. We won't do those just yet. So instead I'll do some deselecting there, and then I'm going to do some loop cuts. So I just hover over the shape and then I click and drag, and it's going to create the first of my several loop cuts. Click and drag, second loop cut. Click and drag down, and last loop cut. So it's kind of created these kind of bisections of the character. Then, whoops, don't want to be loop cutting anymore. Let's go back to the move tool and just the points tool, because I'm going to draw a selection around these points and just give them a bit of a nudge out. Then the next row of points, little nudge, and last row of points, little nudge, just to give this thing some form. This is a very simple character, so it's not going to be there's not a lot going on here. And nudge that out a bit, just to give a bit more of that plum-like shape. And you'll notice some of this is happening in the different views. So we're kind of getting this roundness from one view and not the other. Sometimes we're scaling uniformly, sometimes just on a single axis. So you can see here, I don't want to scale it on all axes because I don't want to make it necessarily more narrow around the shoulders. I want it to be kind of more narrow from the sternum to like the back of the spine. So we're just kind of getting this thing into order. Do some poking and pulling on your points and just kind of get them to look the way they do in this sample tracing image. Now we've done a few on the loop cuts kind of on, we'll call it kind of the vertical of the column, but none cut the other way. And if you notice, we've got a few forming lines here that kind of help with the roundness of the shape that we've yet to add. So let's go ahead and add a loop cut on the side view. I think we need just one in the center. And to get a bit of the form, I'm actually going to scale these before we add more loop cuts. So let's make sure we are in, let's do just simple move mode. We'll get a good selection here of all those center points we just made. And I'm going to scale those out on the x-axis just to kind of give it a bit of form there. And then looks like we have maybe one more set of loop cuts here that we could make. But let's just do a bit of reframing here. We want those to come in, and we want those to come in. So just a little bit of framing before we go too much further. It's modeling after all, just like working with clay. There's a lot of little nudge steps just to try and get it to look as good as we can. So that's getting a nice little round bell shape to it. I like that. Looks pretty good. We still have these loop cuts here on the side that'll help give us the definition we need later on. So let's go ahead and add those. Back to my loop control. And let's add one there. And then a loop there. And I think we're pretty well set. Now doing that allowed me to benefit from some of the just kind of the general frame from the last cut, and so that way I can get like a cleaner curve. If I had to cut all these at once, it might be a little bit more difficult. So our hull's looking pretty good. This is a fantastic time for a little Control or Command S just to save your biped in progress because our torso's looking pretty good, and I think we're going to be on our way to working on the legs next. So go ahead and save your work, and we'll take next steps.